Welcome to the video series on the 10th Insight. 5 years ago on this channel, I covered the 9 insights of the original Celestine prophecy. Now in 2016, I'm covering the 10th Insight. As the 9th Insight entails, I truly believe our mission is to bring our birth vision to this dimension. The goal of this series is to build upon the 9 insights of the Celestine prophecy, but also to build upon this channel's message, and that's that our lives are much more exciting adventures than we've been led to believe. Once you get in tune with the synchronistic events and be able to observe how the universe tries to speak to you through all different forms, you'll then be able to live a more exciting life, a more fulfilling life, and you'll feel like everything is absolutely magical. I look forward to bringing this information, and we're gonna have an excellent journey. We're gonna learn a lot, and hopefully we will all spiritually evolve. May the force be with you, and I'll see you soon. The 10th Insight, Chapter 1, Imaging the Path, Part 1. The 10th Insight defined in Chapter 1. On page 8. The 10th Insight is about understanding this whole awareness, the perception of mysterious coincidences, the growing spiritual consciousness on Earth, the 9th Insight disappearances, all from the higher perspective of the other dimension, so that we can understand why this transformation is happening and participate more fully. Specific knowledge of the 10th Insight is sporadically spread across all 10 chapters. Plot of chapter. The main character discovers that Charlene is missing and begins his quest to find her. She left behind some writings and clues. This chapter is from pages 1 to 21. The setting is the Appalachian Valley and the National Forest. Time period: 4 months after the Celestine Prophecy novel concluded in Peru. At least that's what I gather, because he does mention it's been 4 months. The destination: the Sipsey Canyon. One of the dimensional openings is there. Characters: Charlene Billings, she's referenced. Marjorie, referenced. Main character, he doesn't have a name. He didn't have a name in the original book either. I think in the movie his name is John, but his name is never mentioned in the book, at least that I've seen. Frank Sims is Charlene's office mate who contacted the main character. David Lone Eagle, he's a 50-year-old man the main character had a hunch to interact with and leads him on his journey and provides explanations. He's a direct descendant of the Native Americans who originally inhabited the valley. Several young forest officers, Feynman and Curtis Weber, he's referenced by David Lone Eagle. Premium concepts of the chapter: follow the animals, follow your intuition, especially visions, and hold them. People have success following synchronicity, but then hit a brick wall. The 10th Insight is supposed to help answer that. It helps you learn how to hold the vision. Chapter 1, Imaging the Path. The main character is struggling to live the teachings, live the insights. It seems like it doesn't always work. He would pursue an answer, and seemingly nothing of importance would occur. He would find no message, no coincidence. It would even be in a situation where he was interacting with old acquaintances or someone he worked with routinely. There would be a new point of interest, but somehow the sending of energy would be rebuked or begin with excitement only to warp out of control and finally die in a flurry of unexpected irritations and emotions. He realized something was missing when it came to living the insights long term. Possible reasons for his loss of ability. While in Peru, he was proceeding on constant momentum and spontaneity because in some cases it was desperation. While back home, in a normal environment, especially around skeptics, he lost keen expectation, firm belief that the hunches were going to lead somewhere. The doubt crept in. Some vital part of the knowledge was forgotten or not yet discovered. And I've met a lot of people that complain that the coincidences guide them and then just stop. And it's like they're like, oh, I'm just going to quit because it's not science. It doesn't work every time. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, can you hit a three-pointer in basketball every time? Sometimes you miss. Sometimes you're having a bad day. You're probably doing it wrong. If you lose your connectivity, how's it going to work? It's the force. You have to use the force, Luke. But if Luke wasn't concentrating appropriately, or at least had Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda help guiding him, if he was just doing it on his own, I'm sure he was going to miss a few times. I'm not sure what to do next. Frank says those words to the main character. When the main character is looking over the notes Charlene left, he experiences a vision of Charlene, which matched the same vision he had in a previous book at the end when someone made mention of a 10th insight. Wind touches his face after having this vision. He looks out on a hunch and decides that she must be located in the western edge of the valley. At the beginning, there's a recap of some techniques from the previous 9 insights. And it was connect with spiritual energy within, intuitive thoughts and dreams, luminosity of a room, landscape, synchronistic coincidences, fill up with energy, discerning the foremost question in life, a hunch, an intuition. And what I liked about it was, it's like, all right, this is what we talked about in the first 9, but now we're getting to some heavy-duty stuff. This is the 10th insight. And what was nice about it was, I'm like, connect with spiritual energy within, check. Intuitive thoughts and dreams, check. I was like, man, I am a master of this. I am ready for the 10th. The 10th insight, Chapter 1, Imaging the Path, Part 2, David Lone Eagle. David Lone Eagle is the messenger or guide that the main character encounters when first seeking out Charlene. He's a Native American who is also seeking the 10th insight, but first has to overcome certain things in order to become worthy to receive it. Native American wisdom. They believed the forest was a sacred site midway between the upper world and the middle world here on Earth. People would enter on their vision quests, looking for their specific gifts, their medicine, the path they should walk in this life. Each person must experience the valley alone. State of purification. The shaman taught of state of purification, to leave from this spot bearing only a knife, and to walk until the animals provided a sign, and then to follow until they reached what they called the sacred opening into the upper world. If they were worthy, if they had cleared the lower emotions, they might even be allowed to enter the opening and to meet directly with the ancestors, where they could remember not just their own vision, but the vision of the whole world. The Penance of Forgiveness. David Lone Eagle was stuck at the stage of the Penance of Forgiveness because he couldn't forgive what the white man had done to his ancestors. The resentment he experienced wanted history to be different. He resented that Europeans settled on the continent with no regard for the people who were already there. He needed to clear himself of the resentment in order to enter the state of purification to deem himself worthy. He enters the valley alone to find his own vision. 10th Insight Techniques. David Lone Eagle teaches, raise your energy to another level. There are specific locations in the valley that can help you. The dimensional openings. Understand the true nature of your intuitions and how to maintain these mental images. Watch the animals, and you'll begin to remember what you are doing here in this valley, why we're all here together. The value of remembering. The Europeans could have learned this from the Native Americans if they stopped to listen. The Native American way of life was important. The Native Americans' attempt to remember the knowledge of their ancestors, to remember the ancient wisdom known in previous times, and bring it back to our awareness now. Here are some Celestine-esque things that happen in this chapter. So the main character made eye contact with the man with the dark complexion and jet black hair. And that man is David Lone Eagle. And in the original book, the eye contact and the person connecting always seemed to signal a sign. So the main character decided to walk through the restaurant before checking into the motel on a hunch. And then the main character sees a vision of David Lone Eagle and a white woman and others in another time. The main character sees a vision of another Native American and the same white woman. And both of these visions have the white woman trying to convince the Native Americans that the situation could be worked out. And the visions were something that the main character would have in the original book, and here he's having them again. And it's to inform us that when we have visions, especially in conversation, that we should try to find a way to pay attention to what we're visioning. Some other Celestine-esque things that occurred was the main character experiences a feeling of deja vu as if he had been in the valley before, and could recall that he even consumed berries there. In his mind, he envisioned a picture of a crystal clear pool of water and several tiers of waterfalls in the background, a location that seemed familiar. After he ate the stew, the colors amplified, sage seemed amazingly golden, and peppered with hundreds of white, yellow, and orange wildflowers. And then at some point he focused on the pool and falls and maintained that vision in his mind's eye vision. And this is Holding the Vision, the title of the book, as well as he was imaging the path, the title of the chapter. So that's all I have for this part 2. I wanted to isolate it to David Lone Eagle and the teachings that he had for the main character, how he advanced the plot along, gave the main character advice on how to find his friend Charlene, and some of the teachings that he provided for the 10th Insight. The 10th Insight, Chapter 1, Imaging the Path, Part 3. So Part 1 was the plot, setting, characters, background, getting you up to speed, a recap of the previous book. Part 2 was on David Lone Eagle. Part 3 is getting down to some of the nitty-gritty details. But first, let's start with a recap of the 7th Insight. Maintaining my intuitions. The experience of synchronicity follows a certain structure. Each of us, once we work to clear our past dramas, can identify certain questions that define our particular life situation. Questions related to our careers, relationships, where we should live, how we should proceed on our path. If we remain aware, gut feelings, hunches, and intuitions will provide impressions of where to go, what to do, and with whom to speak in order to pursue an answer. The 7th Insight recap continued. After the stuff on the previous slide is conducted, a coincidence was supposed to occur, revealing the reason we were urged to follow such a course and providing new information that pertained in some way to our question, leading us forward in our lives. The question was then proposed: how would maintaining the intuition help? And like I said at the end of Part 2, what I like about these recaps here, we're in Chapter 1 and we're recapping the 7th Insight. We're not going back to 1, 2, and 3. It's already assuming that you've mastered that, and we're on the 7th Insight, building upon the later chapters, the later insights, the more advanced information. National Forest ownership. Half of the forest was protected, but politicians threatened to allow development. The other half was owned mostly by individuals, but now foreign registered corporations are trying to buy it up. No one knows who is behind it, but some of the owners have been offered huge amounts to sell. Lately, the Forest Service seems to have been counting the hikers who go into the forest. The hum. A dissonance of some kind. The main character is made aware of it through David, and then hears it himself when he is in the forest. People report hearing strange noises from the far eastern end of the wilderness. This hum occurs throughout the book, so keep an eye out for the hum. Follow the animals. The main character focused on the beauty of a plant, and as it sent fragrance to him, a call of several crows was heard, and the richness of the sound amazed him, and he couldn't initially make out their location, but he heard it in high definition. Then he heard songbirds in the trees above, a bumblebee among the wild daisies. Then, right when he had a vision, a white rabbit ran noisily from the berry patch and headed north, and then abruptly stopped as if waiting for him to follow. And then when he did follow, it would start moving again. The path it led was the right path. Later on, he had another vision and heard the crows again. Now that he could see them, he realized he could hear their call louder than it should sound based on their distance. He kept his eye on the tall tree where the crows had previously circled as his guide. A hawk led to the final destination of the chapter. He discovers the pool and the falls that he kept envisioning. It was as if he was imaging the path. Imaging the path. The main character kept having visions of the destination he needed to head to. He kept the vision in his mind and allowed the animals to guide his path. The synchronicity which led me to reread the 10th Insight was from a walk I was going on with Talia, my wife, and I was explaining something to her. I can't remember what it was, but as I was explaining to her, right as I made the concept or made my point, a shooting star came over my head, which then triggered my thought to discuss on how I recalled from the 10th Insight that it was speaking about how animals can lead you on your journey, or animals could, pay attention to where they go because they're trying to lead you in the correct direction. And just as I had explained that, like an opossum or a cat crossed our track, and I thought, man, I really think this is like a sign that I need to reread the 10th Insight. And I'm very glad that I took on that synchronicity and rereading it, because this is a real profound journey, and I'm so glad I'm re-experiencing this information again because it's incredible. So we'll see you in Chapter 2.